welcome to the 50th episode of the Select Characters podcast. I hope I did that with enough gravitas, because 50 is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
It's pretty exciting stuff. We've been here for a minute. We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, man. I've known you and Enrique for about 52 weeks now, and Ryan for slightly less. But yeah, we've been doing this for a year now.
That's so cool. And I mean, thank you to everybody for hanging in there, listening to us for a whole long year.
Definitely.
I guess, if you've been here for a year, you don't need this, but I'm Sam Yates. I'll be your host today. I'm joined by some friends of mine, Christopher Anderson.
Hey.
And Ryan Dildine.
Hello.
Enrique, unfortunately not here for this monumentous occasion, but that's okay. They say that in the wake of the spring rains, if you listen closely, you can still hear him.
Barely disguised disappointment in your voice.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the big one. We didn't really have anything planned except for just to pat ourselves on the back and kind of toot our own horns in this intro section.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Besides that, we're just keeping it to the normal. So we will cruise on forward and talk about what we have been playing. And as always, it's been another excellent week for video games. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been playing. Let's start with, I don't know, Ryan? How about Ryan?
Yeah, this week was super busy for me, so I didn't get to play anything new. But I did play some Rocket League and kind of getting ready for the new map that they announced. I don't know if you guys saw that. Did you?
I did not.
Yeah,
Tell me.
The Tron-inspired thing, right?
Yeah, there's like a map they're adding to Rocket Labs that has, I guess it's like a giant dip in the middle. And so I guess it's going to force goalkeepers to stay closer to the mouth of their goal, so it's actually harder for them to line up blocks and that kind of stuff, and then people will be able to kind of sneak up on them because you lose sight of the ball, I guess, a little bit.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's being released in addition to basketball. I could be wrong. They said it's with the next patch.
Right.
So, yeah, that'll be really awesome. I'm just excited for that, getting ready for that. But, I mean, other than Rocket League, I had a really busy week, so I didn't get to play anything too exciting. But, oh well.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Everybody has weeks like that. Let's move on across the table. Let's find out what Chris has been playing.
All right, we talked about this before we started recording, but let's just talk about the elephant in the room. The Division is going fucking mental.
Yeah, I could talk to you about that for a minute.
So I don't know much about The Division because I never bought that game, but explain to me what exactly happened, because I saw a few headlines that piqued my curiosity.
So, okay, they released the Incursion as part of a free update, and people thought that it was going to be a raid type deal, right? Like you would see in Destiny or World of Warcraft or something like that.
Yeah.
Turned out it was just a horde mode thing, basically, for people who had the best gear in the game, which people didn't really like. And then people found out more and more exploits, not just with the Incursion, but with the rest of the game as well. Apparently the PC platform has got a lot of trouble with hackers, people just zooming around the Dark Zone map, just grabbing stuff, like important reagents and stuff before other people could get to it, or one-shotting people from the other side of the map, basically. And that's not really being fixed. Apparently, they've also reintroduced a bug that was, well, it wasn't really a bug. It was there by design, but it was bad design anyway. But they reintroduced the client handling ammo counts as well on PC. So that meant that people on PC could easily manipulate that for infinite ammo, which gave them a leg up against other players in the Dark Zone, especially, which is not what you want. Numerous terrain glitches involving the ballistic shield that you could use to push yourself out of the boundary of the map and stuff. And Massive seem to be focused on fixing the wrong things first and not really addressing the bugs and just staying silent on the whole about a lot of stuff. So the Division community is beside itself with rage. I mean, just for fun and shits and giggles, just go to Reddit and check the Division subreddit, and they are in complete meltdown mode. Meltdown mode.
It's tremendously bad news out there right now, at least for the Division. And well, the thing that made it worse is that when they first put that patch in, we were expecting all these different balance changes and stuff, like not just the map, but for them to tune up some of the encounters and change things around. One of the things that happened as a result of the patch was that killing a named boss dropped 4 yellows, and they patched that like that night. And so it's just weird to see where their focus is. Maybe that's easier to patch than other things, but like the way it looks on the surface is, oh, oops, like we made this fun, let's fix that. Like instead of all the bugs that are going on out there. And yes, it's true that those might be more difficult to fix, but like just the visual side of it is a tremendous bummer.
Oh, yeah. It's just funny to an extent to see how quickly the community has devolved from excited to insanely angry at everything all the time.
Well, the thing that's the worst for me is that incursion is not very fun. Mm-hmm. Like this content that I was looking forward to turned out to be just not that great at all, especially when you look at the mission design of the other missions in that game. And I mean, you can go back and listen to me talk about how great I thought they were. I thought the mission design was one of the best points of that game. And then you go into the incursion and it's like 4 ladders and then you're in one room for 15 waves. And it's like, what happened to all this amazing design you had? What happened to these really cool encounters? Why? I mean, yes, I'm fighting a tank. That's really, really great, but it doesn't move. It's just a tank, like a stationary tank, and I'm in one giant warehouse room. This is kind of boring. And so I beat that once, and then I immediately fell off, and I think that my history with the Division has probably come to a close at this point.
Well, quick little side note there, though. The incursion was part of a free update. And it doesn't make all the exploits right, obviously, but it does explain why the incursion isn't as amazing as people thought it would be.
Oh, because it was supposed to be just like a little kind of nugget, just a little gimme thing, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And apparently all the incursions are going to be similar to that as well, and they'll be coming in free updates as well. So it's just a little thing that they want to use to sort of bridge the gap between major content updates.
So kind of their version of like, okay, incursion means horde mode. Like in the future, that's what we'll come to think. Like
I think so. But it's not much of a bridge in the end, is it? Because it was beaten like an hour and a half after it got released.
Yeah, that's true. And what was funny was that one of the first exploits, now there's like 100, but one of the first ones was just to get in there and shoot the tank.
Yes.
Like apparently you could have damaged the tank without using the C4 that drops off like every 4 waves or whatever. You could just get in there and just pile shots into the tank, which is very, very funny.
And people, well, they fixed that, and then people found a way to use that ballistic shield to glitch through the terrain a bit to get into a place where enemy fire could not hit you, and you could just sit there and kill everything easily. So that was another thing that people didn't really like. Oh, I forgot. The Xbox One players were locked out of the game entirely because the game had deleted their characters.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think they've got them back now. They just needed to do a rollback of some sort. They've got them back now. And it was at one point, and this was for all platforms, I believe, where crafting a high-end backpack would glitch out your game and just kick you out of it. You were unable to log back in. So some people were not able to play the game for weeks. The Division's not really been doing all that well post-release. It feels like the game did not have any QA testing at all, which is worrying for the future of that game. And of course, this leads people to just sort of, a lot of people are just shrugging, saying, oh, look at that. It's just Ubisoft again, isn't it? And that's a shame.
Yeah, it is.
Because the game at its
Sucks.
core is awesome. The game is really cool.
It's just, the game is cool. So, I mean, which means that there's still an opportunity for them to pivot, right? Because they have a good solid core there. So it's not a completely lost cause, but it's definitely something that I won't be playing for a while.
Yeah, or at least until the next big actual update that adds new content to the game comes up, which is supposed to be in like 2 months or something. It opens up the entire underground railway, I believe.
Well, that sounds cool. I mean, Yeah, I still have hope. Like, I don't think it's all over, but I do think that right now that game, it's a giant smoking crater. It doesn't mean they can't build something nice in that space. It just means right now it's pretty much far gone, because if I cared, I would just get in there and I would run whatever the current exploit is. It just turns out that most of the time it's boring to do. And I don't care enough about the gear because I can already beat the content. So I don't care enough about the gear to run some boring, samey like thing for hours and hours at a time. Just don't want to do it. I already spent enough money paying my little brother like to kill the Bullet King for the last exploit, because I don't want to do that stuff, and it's not even necessary. I guess if you want to for the Dark Zone PvP stuff, yes, but not in general, not for the single player PvE content. You don't need that stuff.
I can't get over that you actually paid your brother to do some farming for you.
Oh, I do it all the time. We've been doing this for years.
Wow.
He's like 13, so he can't really quite get gainfully employed yet, and he likes video games. Everybody wins. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Division is doing a lot of things wrong now, and I'd be surprised if they are going to recover well from that in any reasonable time frame. Like, the next content update needs to knock it out of the fucking park for this to work.
Yeah, if they release another bad one.
Oh, God. Yes. You think the community's angry now?
Yeah.
Just wait until they add something that the community does not think is absolutely amazing. Whoosh.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I don't know, man.
I mean, there's no punishment for doing the exploits. There's no punishment for the cracks that are in that game for taking them to their full advantage. And so the people who exploit get way ahead of the people who don't, and the people who don't, once they fix it, they can't catch up. They're stuck. They might as well never go in the Dark Zone because they're just going to get trashed by the people who did these exploits. And in a situation where there's no punishment, then the dominant strategy is to do the exploit. And until they fix that like sort of core loop right there, then that's it, right? There's nothing to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have hoped that the Division would have learned from the mistakes that Destiny made, but it's exactly the fucking same.
What is the normal sort of, what's the normal thing? Do you do like a rollback or something? What do you think is the way, what is the way forward? How do you get around that stuff besides just fixing the exploit? Because if you fix it, great. And, even if you fix it real fast, but then you still have a disparity between people who did it and people who didn't. So
Rolling
what's
back.
the solution? Yeah, maybe a rollback, I guess.
Well, I don't think that would be a good idea. I say again, you think the community's angry now? Wait until their progress is rolled back a couple of weeks and have to do the entire gear treadmill again.
Yeah, that's true.
That might be akin to taking it out back and shooting it in the head with your shotgun.
And it might be too late now, but I imagine like if you could get it in the beginning and roll back the people who exploited, then you're setting an example. You're saying, hey, look, now you need to be a little bit cautious about running these exploits because there is a potential punishment on the other end. But
well, on the PC, there is a potential there's a punishment because they added in the ability to report glitching players or people using exploits or just straight up hacking. And if you were reported, you will be investigated. And if Ubisoft saw that the report was indeed genuine, you would just get straight up banned without warning. So there is the option to report players on PC, but I don't think you have that option on consoles. But then again, hacking is not as predominant, if at all, on consoles. At least I've never seen it. So
it's bad. It's bad on the PC.
Yeah. People keep telling me that, like being one-shotted from behind a wall 50 yards away from where you are. That's not video games.
No, that's the darkest of zones.
Yes. I do sincerely hope that they get back on their feet and they start communicating with the community as soon as possible, because they are silent on a lot of these issues, or they're not really directly addressing the issues. And that's not doing them an awful lot of good. So yeah, it's a tough one, this one. I wouldn't know what to do if I was in their shoes, because a rollback doesn't seem like something that you should do. And other than that, I don't know, can you investigate every single person who has been using the exploit because everybody's exploiting?
Yeah,
there would be nobody
no, I really
left in the
don't think
game.
So. Yeah, that
I mean,
does not seem feasible.
if you do that, Manhattan would turn into a real ghost town.
So who knows? I mean, I'm going to keep an eye on it, and maybe when that first expansion comes out, might get back in. Who knows? But right now, over it. Totally over it.
I'm just glad that I decided to buy it on PlayStation 4 and not on PC, because I've had a pretty smooth experience all around. Really, I fell through the floor once, and that was basically it. And no bugs of any kind. So I've lucked out.
Yeah.
That's true. Cool. Yeah. Anything else this week you've been playing besides The Division?
I started up GTA 5 or GTA Online again after a hiatus of a couple of months. And I decided to do something different this time. I quite like ACG, Angry Centaur Gaming. That guy does a series called Walking the Walk, where he just walks around the map and tries to see if the game is an accurate reflection of life, if it's an immersive and well-designed world, right? And he sort of opened my eyes to a completely new level in gaming that I've always taken for granted, which is just, I like the world. I like an open world. I like to be able to choose where I can go at any given time. And I like that some worlds feel alive, but I never really go out into the world and find out why it feels alive, right? So I logged in, grabbed my car, went to the northernmost point of the map, got out of the car, and walked back to the city. Just cross country, just walked. Did not run, just walked. And listened to the sound design, listened to ambient dialogue and ambient sounds and stuff, and it was great. I absolutely loved it. And I came across a lot of stuff that I would have missed otherwise, like set dressing and all that. Mm-hmm. And it was absolutely fantastic. I loved every second of it. I mean, I found the radio station for one of the in-game radio stations, just somewhere in the middle of the desert. There's a radio station with a radio tower next to it. And when you get close to it, you hear actual country music from the station playing and stuff like that. And I found little shops that get referenced on the radio and stuff like that. Just stuff that you would completely miss if you would just play the game normally. And I love that game now more than I did before.
That's interesting because there was a video I watched a long time ago. It's from a YouTuber named Wooden Potatoes. And he did, I think he still does them, Guild Wars 2 videos. And he made this video encouraging people to go back, start a new character, and then either make your mini map as small as you could or disable it. And because he said when you play through the game without staring at your mini map, just focusing on, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Then you end up getting a greater appreciation for the world because you actually have to explore it. And you end up, like you said, you end up hearing all the different parts of the sound design. You end up seeing all the different characters and their costumes and all the different buildings and architecture and, you know, natural structures. And you discover things that you never would have discovered if you had just been going from point A to point B. And he released that video, I think like 2 years or something. I could be totally wrong, but it was a good amount of time after the game release. And he said, like, it feels like a brand new game because I'm looking at parts of the game that I've never looked at.
Yeah.
So
I need to do that more often now.
Especially with what a modern convention the like waypoint marker is. Like there's no game that's not telling you exactly where to go next, basically.
And after he made that video and I watched it, I started paying attention to how much I don't even look at what's going on in the world. I'm staring at the mini map and navigating by that. And it just takes away so much from the game.
Yeah, which is why I like some modern convention. Like, I don't mind navigating by compass at all. I actually like that. I prefer that over just being dropped in the world and finding your own way completely. I like some hand-holding, but it depends on the game. Like, it depends on how it's done. Some games do a really good job at immersing you in the world while still telling you where to go. And two examples that spring to mind are, well, two Ubisoft games as well, actually. One is A Crew, where you have the ribbon above your car when you drive around. You still look at the center of the screen. You're still observing everything that happens around you, but you always know where you need to go. So that's better than a minimap is. And The Division has that little line as well, same as in The Crew, really, that just hovers above your character, a very thin orange line that tells you where to go.
Yeah, I
I
think that's a
switched
good
that
touch.
off really quickly after starting up the game for the first time, but I did turn it on sometimes, and I did feel like it did not detract from my immersion in any way, shape, or form. So those are two really, really good examples of how you should do that. And this game will forever be relevant if you're me. The Witcher 3 does a really great job at this as well, because you can technically play that entire game without a minimap, because characters you interact with, they will give you specific directions. Like if you go down the road here, take a left, there's a big stone. Behind that, you need to go there. You can actually navigate that entire game by listening to what NPCs are saying, which is fantastic as well.
That's a really good trend to put it definitely center. I mean, have you ever had those moments where you've been playing the game with nothing but the minimap and then you try not to and you have no idea where you are?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where I am. What is this? I remember that with some of the older Grand Theft Autos. I was just driving by the minimap and I was like, well, this is kind of a bummer. Let me try and actually look at what's going on, and having no idea where I was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
good
really
touch.
cool.
That's a really
that's-
interesting sort of perspective. Yeah.
And
Yes.
I mean, something that one of the things I like about DayZ the best is they have like such a minimal interface, and there's no map. So you have to start learning to navigate by your surroundings. And if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you are. You're lost, and you have to hope you find a sign and then look it up online or something. But yeah, I agree. I think more games need to have that.
It's good to see that pushback. It's good to see games. Well, I guess you had to decide to do it, but in general, there seems to be a pushback to the sort of hamster wheel, point A, point B, point A, point B sort of design.
See,
and it doesn't take away from anything.
I want the option to be there always, because I always want more options. I want the option to have the game hold my hand, but it's also nice to be able to switch it all off and just navigate on my own. But I would always want that option to be there.
Yeah, I can see it and I can appreciate it, but it's not something I would ever do. But
Well,
I can definitely
navigate on feeling alone, you mean?
Yeah, I like being driven by point to point to point. Just tell me where the next thing is. That's what I'm all about. But I can look at it from the outside and appreciate where that is a very valuable perspective to have, because somebody put all those details in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're worth appreciating.
Yeah, that was what surprised me about Grand Theft Auto 5. The amount of detail that's in that game. Because there's a ton of stuff on that map where the game never sends you. The story does not ever send you there. But it's still there. There's an entire dam in that game just hidden away. And it's quite large. You never go there. Ever. You have no reason to go there. There's no missions there. There's no items there. There's nothing there. But it's there. And it has its own sound set. It behaves in the way a dam would, the sounds are all what you would think it is. Yeah. I realized how strange that sounded when I said it. But you know what I mean, right?
Totally.
It feels like a finished, real place, even though it doesn't need to be there, which is why I really, really like Rockstar's design. It is so good. It's the radio station thing. It's the oil fields, and it's the dam stuff. And the whole part where you can just walk along routes in the mountains and you meet people who are backpacking up the mountains and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be there, but it is there. And it's fantastic. So I'm really glad that I did that. That was a good way to spend a few hours yesterday.
That's great. Those touches are always the best, man. The things that they didn't need to do, but they did. I always like seeing those.
Yeah, that's why I like The Witcher as well, because there's so much stuff that the game doesn't really send you to, but it's there regardless. Lots of little stories that you can find without the game telling you that it's there. I love that. That makes the world feel fleshed out and real. So yeah, more of that, please. And it's also why I like open world games, by the way, because they lend themselves perfectly for that kind of stuff.
Cool. Anything else this week?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Yeah, I ain't got much to talk about over here either. Let's see. The Division. Talked about that. Super bummed out by the Incursion. So I'm just going to say that one more time. Also, I don't know, man. I've been playing that Orcs Must Die Unchained.
I've seen that. You've been playing that a lot.
I've been playing that too much, and I don't know why. I really don't.
Like, I was gonna pick it up, and then I saw the reviews were mixed, and I was like,
They
maybe
should
I'll wait.
be. Yeah, they should be mixed, because that game is it's not spectacular, but for some reason, I guess, I don't know, what do you call that? Like a guilty pleasure or something? It's just, I don't know. It's kind of fun.
Comfort food.
Yeah, for whatever reason. I was looking at it. I was trying to think about this actually. Like, what is it about this game? And I think it's so bad that I can never really get a full handle on it. So to completely understand and sort of solve that game's puzzle in my head, I would have to play a number of 5-on-5 matches where everybody stays until the end and I can get a hold of like all the different facets of things that are going on, right? But there's so many levers and AFKs and disconnects and teams that don't work out right that so I'll get on and the first match is a 4-on-5. I'm like, okay, well that didn't count. Let me just play again.
Okay.
And then it's a 4-on-5 the other way, or a 3-on-5, or somebody left, or everybody decided to go attacker for no reason. And I'm like, okay, well that didn't count. That's not the way this game is. And maybe once a night I'll get in like a solid 5-on-5. Everybody knows what's going on, kind of jam. And it sort of works out, right?
Right.
And I wonder if that's what's keeping me there. But it's just like a light, fun, kind of entertaining game. It doesn't require a lot of like stuff from me. But I do like the fusion of almost... It's like a MOBA, but you have to aim everything. So you have to aim all your attacks, and you have to be on point with your third-person controls, but it feels a little FPS-y in the way that you can like move around people and circle strafe them and things like that.
So it's offline Smite, essentially.
Oh, it's online. It's 5-on-5. It's fully multiplayer. And I guess it could be a lot like Smite. I haven't actually ever played Smite. I wonder if I would like that a lot better. But at the same time, you're in a pool with all these people, and I still think that the fact that I am decent enough at it that I always perform very well and I'm just murdering people left and right, I wonder if that's still part of the appeal for me. It's like a combination of those two factors. It's the games hardly ever shake out to be proper 5-on-5s, and when they do, I'm just murking people. So maybe that's the jam. I don't know. I mean, I've started to feel the frustration creep in, and I've started to feel a little bit bored here and there.
Yeah.
Time to move on.
I think, I'm going to try it.
It's not, I mean, you should, just so that I could have another opinion on it. That'd be great.
Okay.
Because this game is very confusing to me, and I still don't understand what the appeal is, but something about it just keeps drawing me back, and I'd love to maybe have some help getting to the bottom of that, because that is always a question I like to have the answer to. And so, yeah, I don't know. But that's my week, man. That about wraps it up. Let's see, I'm supposed to ask about a follow-up from last week. Does anybody have a follow-up?
Yeah, about the Nostalrius WoW vanilla server thing. The petition is now over 136,000 people strong. So that's pretty big. And the last I heard of it, I'm looking at the petition right now. I'm trying to find the relevant bit. The petition will now be delivered to Blizzard Entertainment CEO Mike Morhaime by an ex-developer. What's that guy's name? No idea what the other guy's name was, but he's an ex-developer for World of Warcraft, and he's going to present it to the CEO of Blizzard. So maybe we'll get an official response from Blizzard in regards to legacy servers, apart from the one they gave at BlizzCon, which is, you don't want that. You think you do, but you don't. Because apparently 136,000 people do. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Will be interesting.
Is that under the assumption that they're just not aware of this petition, or they're not aware of this whole situation? Like, is that why? Or is it
they are aware. I mean, if they're not aware of people asking this, they could never claim something like, yeah, you think you want this, but you don't really want this.
So then what's the deal with the symbolic gesture? I mean, if they already know it's out there, they already know that the fans are upset and there's a petition, like what does putting it in front of them change?
I really don't know, but it might make even more people aware that this is a thing because it's being presented by an ex-developer.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah.
And isn't it sort of a traditional thing to hand over a petition to the company or person who's being petitioned?
I don't know. Sounds cool, though. I mean, why not just let them do it? That's my stance. Just let them run their little server. What's the big deal?
No, well, they never fought for running their own server. The whole petition was to ask Blizzard to reevaluate their stance on having official legacy servers. They are specifically asking Blizzard. Yeah, they're specifically asking Blizzard to run a server that's running the original version of the game.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly. So, give people what they want. Doesn't really matter, does it? And even if 10,000 people or maybe 20,000 paying customers play on a legacy server, that's still quite a lot of money going Blizzard's way. So
I wonder if it's
why not
enough.
do it?
I wonder if it's enough.
Well,
Yeah.
how many? You said it's over 100,000 now.
136,000.
Well, assuming they could gain that many players just by providing vanilla WoW, I'd assume it's hard for them to ignore because they want to keep that game going as long as they can. Like they want to milk that cow for as long as they can.
Yeah. I mean,
And that's a
136,000
substantial.
people,
Yeah.
yeah. At $15 a month a pop, that's nothing to sneeze at, man.
Especially for a game that's, showing its age and losing subscribers, and it has been for years.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
it'd be hard
136,000
hard to-
people who think it's a good idea, though. That's not 136,000 people who are going to subscribe and play.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
is the amount of people within that who will enough to support spinning up the servers and having support technicians and all the stuff that is, the ancillary personnel that's required. I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I wonder if they're even thinking about that. And I wonder if they already did the math and it didn't shake out.
Probably.
Yeah, I expect Blizzard to not act on it.
I don't know. Well,
Who knows? I'd love to see it. Like I said, I was telling you in chat, like that's even one of the things in that game, Game Dev Tycoon. Like your fans want to have some of your old code to do something. Like, do you release it or do you shut them down with a lawsuit? I thought that was funny. It's got to be a real thing that sort of happens. You see games like open sourcing their legacy code all the time as like a gesture of goodwill. And if you're not using it anymore, what does it matter?
Yeah, I think that's quite enough on that then.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good long section. Let's try and find a topic or two and roll on into that.
So let's just skip to the non-controversy of the week. Rust, a survival game where, well, I don't really know much about that game. I haven't really played it. All I know is that the game has a lot of floppy dicks in it, so it has to be good. But recently it stirred up a bit of controversy because the newest update sort of locked your character into the sex that you defined in your Steam ID. So if you are a guy and you told Steam that you are a guy, you are going to be a guy in the video game. This has led to a bit of a kerfuffle in the community, with some people finding it really funny. I think me and Sam are among those people, and I think Ryan is among those people as well. And a lot of other people who are absolutely flipping their shit over this.
I think it's the best, man. I think it's just like the coolest decision ever. And I think that it's not even based on whatever gender you are in your profile. I think it's totally random, isn't it?
Well, your sex is locked into your Steam ID, but your race and just your facial features and everything like that, that is completely random. So in a way, it is completely like real life, because you can't really choose who you are in this life either.
No.
On their blog, the creator Gary Newman had the following to say to the controversy, and he says, "We understand this is a sore subject for a lot of people. We understand that you may now be a gender that you don't identify with in real life. We understand this causes you distress and makes you not want to play the game anymore. Technically, nothing has changed since half the population was already living with those feelings. The only difference is that whether you feel like this is now decided by your Steam ID instead of your real life gender."
I think it's fantastic, man. I think it's just like the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like you just spawn in as whatever and then you just roll with it. You make it work, you know? You get your computer generated size of your donger and you just roll with it. You can't change it. You can't hack it. There's nothing you could do. I think it's amazing, and I really hope that they do not back down from that change.
Yeah, right. I think they've already said that this is the way that it's going to be now, and that's it. And I quite like that because, and this is something that he said as well. He says it's quite pleasing to see different races in the game working together, and it makes you realize how arbitrary race is. And he's completely right. I mean, your race is secondary to your actions in real life as it is in the game.
It's very nice, almost poetic. I mean, if you want to take it as a statement towards all that stuff, I think it works that way too. And I think it also works at just the base level of being just an awesome and hilarious idea for a video game to do. Just skip the character creator, pull your Steam ID, and whatever you get is what you get. And it's funny because you could have just the whole gamut. You could have like short people, tall people, black people, white people, like just everything. It's so cool to see such a huge diverse cast. Like it's not The Division where you pick your character and you run into a lot of people who look exactly the same. The odds of you meeting somebody else who picked your character, even like with a character creator that's not entirely robust, is still going to be huge, off the charts.
Yeah. And as some people brought up, that if we had the choice in this, everybody would be playing as really, really short black people because you can't see them at night, which gives you an advantage over other people.
Is that true?
Which is like funny. The weirdest fucking thing I've ever read.
That is very, very weird. It's like metagaming, but through the character creator.
Right.
Yeah. So this is interesting to me. I'm still trying to, because my initial impression was it's hilarious, and I still think it's hilarious. But it's really interesting to see the reaction people are giving to not having a choice over what their character looks like, because there's a lot of games we have where you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So why, I don't know, why is Rust like, why is it the one that's getting jumped on, I suppose? I mean, I get that if it had one character creator before, but
yeah,
it doesn't take away anything from the game.
That's true. And I think in the other games, the character you're given is a narrative fixture. Like you are that character because that is the main character of the game. Mm-hmm. And whereas this, you would expect something more sandboxy, and they're just like, boom, this is you, rock and roll.
I think that's cool because it's like because like in real life, you look the way you look, and those are the cards you're dealt, and that's what you got to deal with. So it's kind of cool that that's now in a video game where people, like you said, expect that sandboxy element to everything.
Is it
but
easier?
Now they're saying, hey, here's your set of circumstances. Go out in the world and don't die. You know?
Is it easier for you if it was mandatory? I know for me, it saves me time and skips a step because I'm just going to punch random on the character generator and I'm going to roll anyway. So for me, it's an easy thing to say yes to. But I know you guys like to invest yourselves in how you craft your character. Does the fact that you have no choice over it, does it just take away any of your like being bummed out about how you look?
No,
not really, because for me, it's a sort of compulsive thing I need to do when I play a game, and it allows me to create my own character. This just saves me around 90 minutes, to be honest. I can just get to playing the fucking game.
Yeah, me too. Like if there's a character creator, I'll take advantage of it, but I don't spend more than 10 minutes on it. And
oh god, no.
So if they're gonna give me a character, I don't care. Like just give me the character, let me play the game, because that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about if the game's good, if I'm gonna have fun playing it with my friends. I'm not really concerned about what my character looks like. If anybody's like, "Oh, your character looks stupid," it's like,
what am I gonna do?
This.
Yeah,
yeah. Like, sorry. Like, take it up with the developers. I don't know.
What applies in real life also applies to the game now. I didn't pick how I look. It's just how I am.
Yeah, so I feel like I've done an all right job with that. So why can't I do a fine job in a video game?
Yeah, I think. Are you guys inclined to log in now just to see what it gives you? Because I kind of am.
Yep. Yeah.
I want to.
Rust has always been a game that's been on my radar, but I haven't played it just because I'm into that genre. But yeah, I'm sure this week. It's going to be on my what did you play next week. So
yeah, I do want to know. I want to know what it makes me. I want to know what I look like. And in a way that makes it, that's why I think that this thing is good from all angles, because you're going to have a lot of people who just want to see what that looks like. So as a publicity thing, it's great. It's also cool just the way it is. Like it kind of works on all levels.
Yeah. I really do like this, and I hope they don't crawl back to making it different again, because sheesh. I think this is hilarious.
I don't think I want this to become a widespread thing. Like I still think character creators should be the norm.
Oh yeah, but it works in this instance and in this instance alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So I mean, my summation is 2 thumbs up, Gary Newman. Keep jamming, dude.
And if you're And if you turn out to be an ugly dude or indeed an ugly woman, you have to do the same thing in the game what you do in real life. Deal with it.
Chop down
hard,
trees
you know?
and build houses. Exactly.
Yeah. Be constructive with that anger. Build a house.
There are people out there who are making the video games that we love, and they're the game developers. They create the product that we consume, and it's generally been thought that maybe some of their working conditions are not stellar. They absolutely, at least the way I've seen, work too much. Too long hours, too much crunch, all that bad stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff going on. But this week, an article came out on VentureBeat by a guy named Alex St. John, who basically said the opposite. He said that they need to stop whining. They need to get it together and pursue their passion. Basically is kind of the gist of what I'm getting. The fact that they feel that they have bad working conditions is their own fault. Like it's a fault with their attitude. And I thought that was a very controversial opinion myself. And I thought that's definitely something worth talking about.
This fucking guy. I mean, he's a veteran of the games industry, right? He knows what it's like to work in that industry. And he probably knows that you start working in that industry because of your passion for video games. How this person can justify saying that essentially, this is not a job. You're making art and all you're doing is pushing a mouse. I mean, how can you have that opinion? I mean, there's nothing as detrimental to somebody's motivation than telling them that their work is basically amounting to nothing at all. Right?
I just don't understand why he assumes it's not worth the time or worth the money. Like, what about this job compared to all the other jobs where you're pushing a mouse?
Yeah, I guess the idea is that you're making video games, right? Like, and that the 80-hour work weeks are just part of it. And if you have passion, then you should be on board with all that stuff. It seems like he's got two driving motivations, and one of them is to say, yeah, if you're getting shit on by the corporate world, get out there on your own, make your own thing. And he's using this negative argument to kind of give them the kick in the butt that they need. But at the same time, he's really shitting on the people who aren't like that. Like the people who are doing the job that they want, the way that they want. They don't want to take off and go independent. And he's saying that they just need to suck it up, basically.
Yeah, which is bullshit. I mean, we've known for ages now that working in game development is quite strenuous. It is quite hard. You have that wonderful thing called crunch time, where you're working so many hours is not even funny just to get the game out the door in the time frame set to you by upper and middle management, right? Is it too much to ask for fair treatment if you work at a company like that? Is it too much to ask that you are paid fairly for the work you put in and that your time is used with respect towards you? I don't think that is too much to ask. You're just asking people to treat you like a person and not just a cog in a giant machine. You're a person. Fucking hell.
Yeah, and it's got nothing to do with he says pushing a mouse around. Like, he's a real big fan of that statement. Like, the work's not strenuous. But it's got nothing to do with how strenuous the work is. If your job is to eat bananas, but you have to do it 80 hours a week, it's still a huge... Like, that's not the way that labor laws work. That's not the way that it should be.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. Like that phrase itself doesn't make any sense because, I mean, I am a video editor, so I get paid to push around a mouse to create narratives through artistically contrasting video clips together. Mm-hmm. And I don't work under these conditions. Graphic designers are creating pieces of art for people to use by pushing a mouse around. They get paid way more. Like, they have way better work conditions. So why is it just the fact that he trivializes games? Like, why is that an okay argument to say, oh, well, the workers should be treated like shit because they're just making games?
Yeah, it's bullshit. And not just in this instance. I mean, transfer that argument to others, to other disciplines. Like you just said, you're a video editor. You just push your mouse around. Do you not deserve to be treated fairly? So, oh, you play guitar for a living. Well, it's just a guitar, innit? Or you're a truck driver. Or you just drive, don't you? It's not a real job. How?
Yeah, there's something about the game industry in particular where the supply outpaces the demand in such a way that there's an ideal to that job. Like, it's a lot of people's dream job to work in video games. Mm-hmm. And that leads to a sort of exploitive culture among upper management, because when you have this large supply of labor and there's no standards or practices in place, this isn't true everywhere, obviously, but it is true in some places. Yeah. And they just get put through the ringer. And to say hey, that's just the way it is, I don't think that's the right attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fields where there's a very large pool of labor available, and the people who do get those select number of jobs are paid well because they're the best out of that whole group. Where gaming, it's like the opposite. You have people saying, like this guy saying, you should take these hours and this pay because you're so fortunate just to have this job, because there's so many other people who are willing to do it.
Yeah, and there's no job security in gaming either. A lot of the contracts are 0-hour contracts. The job you have today could be gone tomorrow, essentially.
Yes.
And especially if you're a QA tester, a play tester, or if you're one of the people coding, you don't get treated fairly in a lot of places. You don't get paid a living wage, but you are required to be behind your desk for sometimes days on end, not even going home when it's crunch time. And it's not that's not even conjecture. That is stuff that has happened at the big developers like EA, for instance, or at Ubisoft. It has happened. People are treated unfairly. People are being taken advantage of because it's a dream thing. I don't see how this writer can say that people shouldn't complain about that sort of stuff. That's beyond me, how you can say something like that.
He's making it seem like a fault of the person. Like, if you're enduring this, it's because you don't have enough passion to get out there and make stuff on your own. You don't have the drive. You don't have the vision. You're willing to settle for this corporate job. And if you are, then you deserve what's coming to you. You deserve to be treated this way, because obviously you're not like the real game developers. That's not cool, man. I don't like that attitude at all. Because inevitably there's going to be people who don't have that much passion. But guess what? Like, jobs aren't entirely built upon passion. Jobs, there are people who just feel it, they've got it coursing through your veins. But there's also people, this is as high as they can get. They might not have that drive and initiative. It doesn't make them less skilled as game developers. And if they have to end up settling in the middle of some corporation, they shouldn't be treated like shit. Come on, dude. People are people.
Yeah, exactly. Now, my favorite quote from his entire bit, like, it's full of absolute gold, but this is probably the worst. He says, "To my great shock and disappointment, they never respond to this feedback with any sort of enlightenment or gratitude for my generous attempt at setting them free. Usually, I just get rage." What did you expect, you ignorant twit?
Thank you for showing me the light and telling me I need to go out on my own instead of working in conditions that I don't deserve. Like, let's...
Being a victim of their employers has somehow managed to become a deeply cherished part of their core identities, and any suggestion that they are far better equipped to rekindle their sheer passion for making games, do a Kickstarter startup with their other talented friends and crank out an original hit game than a bunch of amateur kids working in Flash is greeted with a lot of anger. Well, yes.
Yeah, yo, dog, it's because of the way you told them that. Like, sometimes it's not the message, it's the way the message is delivered. Are you talking to them with the same words that you used to write this article? Because, like, it's all about presentation. Go check up with Dale Carnegie. He'd be more than happy to help you out.
I'm not even involved. I don't know the first thing about how to develop a video game, but reading this is like making me angry, because that's not how you treat people. It's not how you talk to people, especially those working at their job in really terrible conditions.
Yeah. I mean, passion is all well and good. And, passion keeps you where you are at now. But just because you're passionate does not mean that you should be taken advantage of, or or indeed that you should leave the industry altogether if you don't like the way you're being treated. Like, no, motherfucker. There are laws for this shit. You should be treated fairly. It's as simple as that.
I mean, a lot of people don't have the resources to go strike out on their own and take that enormous risk with their entire livelihood.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for the security of a 9-to-5. And I feel like he's not considering the full ramifications of what he's trying to say. I mean, I can kind of see the nugget of his point somewhere way in the back, like buried under a mound of turds. But he's presenting it the wrong way, and the point he's presenting isn't a reality. It's not the reality of the situation for the vast majority of people. He's speaking to a very small minority. And if all those people left to make their own games, how would the games that require huge teams get made? Like, in that universe? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And another thing that frustrates me later on in the article, it says, you may have read this already, Chris. They rant about the value of work-life balance, how hit games can be delivered on how hit games can be delivered on a schedule with proper management, and how they can't produce their best work when their creative energies are tapped for after a long 40-hour work week. Sitting at a desk, apparently people can even burn out working too hard to make. And then he pauses and he says, video games.
And here's the thing, right below that, because that is quoted on an article on Kotaku that I'm looking at right now, but right below that is a link to a story that talks about St. John himself burning out while working on video games.
Yeah,
it has happened to him.
Just because we in our pretty much worldwide society, we have a trivial view of video games, like they're not as important as, literature or film or television, that kind of thing. Mm. That doesn't mean that it's not a huge task to take on. That doesn't mean that it's not a very intellectually demanding task or a mentally demanding task. Doesn't mean that there wasn't a ton of creativity and planning and effort that went into it just because you don't hold it as high as something that someone else does.
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't, if you think, oh, it's just a video game, well, that can be said about anything. You can say, wow, this studio spent $200 million to make a 2-hour movie. Like, really? Is that worth it? It's just a movie that people are going to see and forget about. So why is it okay to do that to video games? I just don't understand. Like, if there's a huge group of people who recognize it as something that's valuable to them.
Yeah, I don't get how he can say that video games are not valuable, because that's essentially what he's implying. This guy, he helped develop DirectX. The Xbox is built on that. Pretty much every game on PC uses DirectX. So apparently he did think that video games were important enough to develop something for, right? And now he turns around and says, well, you could do something else with your life. Make productivity software instead of video games if you want a normal 9-to-5 job.
That's the thing. Like, especially if a game does well, like if you have a game that brings in millions of dollars, that's what makes it not trivial. That's what makes it worth it to somebody. At least at a monetary value, you can assign some value to it. And if it's bringing in a ton of money, then those workers deserve to get paid regardless of what they're doing. You could say, pro basketball players are paid to throw a ball around. It's like, well, you know what? They're paid a lot of money because they bring in a lot of money. It doesn't matter what the action is.
Yeah,
they're putting in work and they're bringing in shit tons of money, and that they deserve to be paid adequately and correspondingly.
Yeah. And why do they bring in tons of money? Because video games matter to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Video games are awesome. And by proxy, the people who make video games are therefore awesome.
Yeah, I think
Treat
so.
them good.
And it's like the phrase "it's just a game" really bothers me, because I think that phrase is supposed to be used to put everything in perspective. Like, if you're really getting mad at a video game, somebody says this is just a game. Like, yeah, it is, but it doesn't mean it's not important. It just means maybe that game, that, you know, that round of League of Legends or whatever you're playing isn't super important in the scope of your entire life, but that doesn't diminish the meaning of the whole game itself. It doesn't diminish the fact that, you know, that game is the biggest game in the world, and that it gives a lot of people something to look forward to every day and something to work towards. Like, it doesn't diminish that. It just puts it in perspective for your own life.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating to see that argument. It's just a game used to diminish the entire thing rather than use it as a personal perspective tool.
Yeah. You can't look at the entirety of the games industry, and you can't look at the size of the gaming community, just the fan base alone, and all the people going to the conventions and all the communities behind certain games. You can't look at that and say, well, it's just video games, is it? 'Cause apparently it's a lot more than that to a lot of people.
Yeah, there's billions of fans, billions of dollars being made. Video games are regularly discussed in legislature. Like, should we, you know, should this kind of violence be allowed in this kind of game? Or they're always discussed on the news. Did this violent video game cause this? And it's like, okay, so it matters then, but it doesn't matter when we're all having fun. Like, why does it only matter sometimes? Why is this only a valuable medium sometimes?
Well, the
It's very
value of
frustrating.
something is always in flux, and it's almost never tied to the actual object itself. It's all about perception. I mean, there was a time where lobsters were like poor people food, and there was a time where diamonds were just nothing until De Beers got a hold of them. Like, it's all about perception. It's all about attitude. It has nothing to do with video games itself. Like, the value of a thing is ascribed to it by the attitudes of the people who want it, or the attitudes of the people who desire it, or, you know, just the people looking at it. That's where all that stuff comes from. And without a change in that overall attitude, it's always going to be just a game. But like you said, as the industry grows and more money gets pumped into it and more people get on board, I think it's inevitable that things should start to shift. It seems to me that it's already happening. There's just some like lingering holdouts.
Yeah, I think, and maybe that's the key attribute. Maybe it's just once the income becomes high enough, then everyone will be like, look, it brings in so much money. How can you deny it? And in turn, how can you deny these workers their compensation?
Yeah. Just because you burnt out on an industry, right? And by the way, he got himself fired from Microsoft because of his burnout. But just because you don't like the industry, that does not mean you should attack the people who are still working in that industry and who want to keep on working in that industry in good conditions. You just can't do that. And you, sir, you could just fuck off, get into the sea.
Boo. Boo, I say.
Boo. Select characters rating, boo out of 5 stars.
And that will bring us to the conclusion of this anniversary issue of Select Characters Podcast, episode 50. Just want to bring that home one last time.
We
just
did
to hit on it. We did. Good job, us. And, you know, we're not going anywhere. Still be here. And, I mean, just a great opportunity to say thank you to all of our loyal listeners out there. We still always appreciate it. I say it every week, but this week I really mean it. Times 50 for the 50th. You can find us online, Facebook, Twitter, reddit.com/r/select-characters. You can send us an email if you want to comment on any of our topics, suggest a topic, just say hi. That's selectcharacters@gmail.com. And you can always cruise by the YouTube channel where we've got different content, video stuff going up several times a week. Ryan's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wanted to comment real quick. So we are going to move Game Club to a bi-weekly format, which you may hear here, or you may see it on the YouTube channel if you tune into that. There will be a video up, should be up right now. But yeah, we are going to make the Game Club a bi-weekly format. So every 2 weeks, we're going to play a game. That gives us a little more time as hosts to get a better feel of the game, and it gives you guys more time to play it as well, because I know that you guys may not have as much time or money as you'd like. So we want to make it a little easier on you guys so you can join us. And there's going to be a couple new series of videos that are going to be coming out, which I will explain in a video that's coming out Wednesday in place of the Game Club. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Yep, and so this bi-weekly thing is still Hyperlight Drifter. If you didn't get a chance to play it last week, get on there. Play some Hyperlight Drifter. Dash around, slash people. It's kind of cool. But for the full unpacking of those thoughts, you'll have to wait until next Wednesday. And I guess that about wraps up the business portion of this program. As always, thank you so much. We do really appreciate it, and we will see you next week.